U3, video 17, defend, criticize U.S. foreign policy, mainly talking about the War of 1812. And then we're going to talk about protective tariffs. Tariffs again. We talk a lot about tariffs in American History 1. And hey, tariffs are making a comeback in modern America. Is that a good thing? Who does the U.S. hate more? 1776, you would obviously say that we hated the British more and the French were helping us out by giving us money and helping our Navy. 1800, we hated the French. The whole XYZ, the quasi-war, so not that we liked the British during this moment, we probably hated the French. 1812, it's going to be back to the British. Do we really get along with anyone? I don't know. Do we get along with anyone today? So that's where we're focusing on our rivalry with the British in 1812. James Madison, father of the Constitution, or framer of the Constitution, whichever you want to say. He finally gets his chance to be the boss, and unfortunately, he will begin as the boss during probably the worst possible time. Now, it's going to be good in the end. He's going to set up some pretty good stuff moving forward, but when he gets to be president, it's like, could I have been president earlier or later? This is not the good time. Why is it not a good time? Because we still have the issue with the British impressing our soldiers, seizing our goods. It is very hard for us to sell and trade goods with Europe. Napoleon's over there doing his thing. The British are doing their thing. And if you remember from Jefferson earlier, we got into a whole bunch of conflict and we're trying to do our best to stay out of war. But even in doing so, we've got impressment and we're not being able to sell goods. Oh, by the way, the British are arming the American Indians still, and we can't move west. We're trying to move into Ohio, Indiana, the Northwest Territory. We're trying to expand our country. We're trying to grow our wealth. But we can't because we're basically fighting a war, and the British are helping them do that. Oh, it sounds like a great job for James Madison. Now, dealing with the war in the Northwest, and this is all going to kind of get wrapped into the War of 1812, the Ohio Northwest Territory war with the American Indians, and then also the war with the British. All gets smashed into the War of 1812, which is kind of like an American Revolution too. The battle here in the Northwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, up near Canada, William Henry Harrison, Tippecanoe, future president, will fight what almost is an allied effort of American Indians. The Shawnee leader Tecumseh will realize from earlier incidents and affairs that the only way to defeat America is that all American Indian tribes must join together, which is no small task. To get all of these different, it's basically getting different nations to ally with each other, speak different languages, have different cultures. It is completely false and incorrect to think that all American Indian tribes are similar. So Tecumseh's efforts are really amazing to ally all of the American Indian forces together to once and for all stand up to the American imperialists or whatever. Well, now while he is out trying to get his unified nation together, his idiot brother, Tenskwatawa, who originally was known as Lala Withika, which meant noisemaker. When your parents name you noisemaker, you're probably not the best child. So later on in life, he'll say, no, actually, they were wrong. My name's Tenskwatawa. That means the prophet, and I can see things that you don't know about. Like, no, you're a noisemaker. You're not a prophet. But nonetheless, they thought he was a prophet, and everyone started to follow him and lead with him. He was the brother of Tecumseh, so it's like, all right, well, maybe he does know what he's doing, even though he shot his eye out with an arrow once upon a time. And you can see that you're like, I don't know. Should we be following the guy who shot his eye out with an arrow? I guess so. And he sets up Prophetstown. Now, while Tecumseh is away getting his troops and his army and uniting the American Indian nations, unfortunately, Lawatega doesn't know what he's doing, and the town, Prophetstown, gets burned down. Eventually, we have the Battle of Tippecanoe, and we have various other battles during the War of 1812, and the American Indians will lose. I don't go a lot into the battles, you know that. I'm just trying to give you some of the players, some of the big things. What else was going on with the War of 1812? As we talked about, impressment is leading towards war. The arming of American Indians is leading towards this War of 1812. The inability for American businesses to buy and sell goods with Europe is leading towards war. We have to solve the situation. The situation under Jefferson was never resolved. Remember, we just said, okay, embargo. We're just not going to buy and sell goods. Oh, that's going to be the plan. So forever, we're never going to buy and sell goods. We're eventually going to have to work this out. We're going to have to find a deal, or one of us is going to have to kill each other. We're going to have to solve the situation. We can't just act like nothing has happened. We can't just avoid each other forever. Eventually, you got to break up or you got to fight. You got to figure it out. You can't just ignore each other. So, trouble leading up to the War of 1812. We have the British arming the American Indians. We have competition for fur trade. It's not really a big deal, but nonetheless, it's there. We want to expand. America wants to expand westward. We can't when the British are in the Northwest Territory. And when the British are in the Northwest Territory arming the American Indians, we can't expand. So we've got to solve this situation. And negotiations aren't working. Looks like we're probably going to go to war. There's a blockade happening where we can't sell goods to Europe, all of Europe. It's not like we're just not trading with England. We're dealing with the impressment of merchants. And they're forcing our guys to be Navy sailors for the British. So we've got impressment, but we're also unable to buy and sell goods with all of Europe because there is a blockade. The British are dealing with their own French thing, and they don't want us aiding any of the other Napoleonic countries. So it's just, there's a bunch of different things, and we can't work them out. And when nations cannot work out their conflicts or problems, obviously it's going to lead to war, it's going to lead to violence, and we're going to have the War of 1812. Bunch of different issues, our issues with the American Indians, our issues with the British, and we can't solve them, so it's going to lead to this war. You have the war hawks, who are pushing Madison towards war. Like, hey, dude, we can't keep doing embargoes. We can't just cancel trade forever. We can't keep avoiding the American Indians. We got to solve it. We got to solve it now. And the only way is going to be through war. It's going to be through violence. We've tried diplomacy. It didn't work. And the Hawks are saying, war, 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 war. The Federalists on the other end are saying, you people are crazy. We were lucky to beat the British in the first place. They are still the most powerful nation in the world. And technically, we didn't really beat them. They just decided to stop fighting us. Do we want to get conquered by them again? We cannot stand up to them. We don't have the resources. We are not in a position to fight another war. These are the Federalists saying this. And, well, we'll get to that. Shouldn't put that. I spoiled the show. So some of the things with the War of 1812 that stand out, and this really is not a big eventful war, but we will talk about it. The White House gets burned down by the British. The Star-Spangled Banner, the song by Francis Scott Key, is written while the British are blowing up Baltimore. As I mentioned, you had the battles between the American Indians with the British and the Americans in the Northwest Territory, Battle of Tippecanoe, and the battles up towards Canada. And then you have famously the Battle of New Orleans, which happens after the war was over. Let me say that again. We, under the guidance of Andrew Jackson, win the Battle of New Orleans. But the battle was fought after the war was over. They didn't get the memo. And I'm not joking, like, oh, you didn't get the memo. No, they literally did not get the memo. No one told them, hey, the war's over. It takes a while to get the letter across the nation. You can't email people in 1812. You got to literally write a letter and then get it on a horse and then ride it down to New Orleans. It takes a little while. And in the meantime, they had a battle and America won. And they felt like, wait a second. The war was already over. What are we doing? Those things tend to happen. So those are some of the notable things of the War of 1812. So we actually win, or they quit again, or whatever. But the British eventually like, all right, enough with these Americans. They have some pretty good assaults on America and some pretty good attacks, but they're unable to knock us out. We're able to stand up to them. Eventually the British are like, all right, it's over again. Whatever. Let's just sign the peace thing. Let's just move on. We don't really win anything. They don't really lose anything. It's kind of, there's little gains, but not big gains. We by no means get all the stuff that the Hawks wanted. We're not going to go to free trade. We aren't going to get Canada. The American Indians aren't completely gone, although we do move them out. And the British abandoned their idea of setting up an Indian territory. Kind of small gains, but nowhere near what the Hawks planned. The Hawks said, we're going to take Canada. We're going to take the Northwest. We're going to grow this country. Yeah, none of that ever happens. But we don't lose anything either. And that's what will kill, and it should have been X here on the Federalist Party, because the Federalist Party, remember, like, war's done, you idiots, we're going to lose again. Oh, my goodness, what are you people? Wait a second, we won? And at that point, people were like, you Federalists are losers. You thought we were going to lose. You almost wanted to secede and start your own nation. You were so anti-war. You were so against it. You guys are an embarrassment. No one will ever vote for you losers again. No one's ever going to follow you. No one's going to ever listen to you. You might as well just quit your party now. And they did. That was it. The Federalist Party suffered so much embarrassment, so much shame from this incident because they were so anti-war. And then like that, oh, the war's over. Like, wait, what? The war's over? We were anti-war. We were going to use that to leverage us to get more power. And now it's just over? So then they lost leverage. Boom, they're done. So the British will be gone, and they will not establish an Indian territory in the Northwest. We do not get Canada. Oh, shucks. That was our opportunity. Now, Canada's still there today. Maybe one day. Watch your back, Canada. Watch your back. All right, cool. So now we can open up free trade again, sort of, kind of, but I mean, it's not as bad as it was. The blockade will be lifted. The British are not going to have a blockade around our nation anymore, so we can buy and sell goods with Europe. Kinda. Are they still impressing our soldiers? Kinda. Not a lot changes. The War of 1812, cool story, but did it really have a big impact? All right, so let's talk about protective tariffs again. Kind of changing gears. Now we're going to move past the war, and we're going to move into really what's going to be the theme and the next step in America. As America grows, the issue between the North and the South is going to continue to worsen. The divide between the two economies, the beliefs, the values, the cultures, they're going to widen, and tariffs are going to have a part of that. Government policy that favors one side over the other is going to help create this division, especially when it's economic policy that favors the North as opposed to the South. Economic policy that favors the nation as opposed to individual states. These policy issues are going to create a divide within the nation. And the idea in the past where it was us versus France, us versus England, us versus the American Indians, and there still will be American-Indian conflict moving forward through Unit 3. But the issue for the remainder of Unit 3 in terms of policy conflict and turmoil is really going to be amongst the states, amongst the differences in the nation. It's not going to be outside enemies. It's going to be enemies within, which are going to exacerbate and get worse throughout Unit 3 into Unit 4, where we will have a war. That's why tariffs matter, because tariffs are going to be one of the issues. There's many variables, but one of the issues that's going to constantly divide the nation, constantly be a wedge between the North and the South, is going to be tariffs. Now, one of the interesting things is we haven't really worried about tariffs in modern history until now. So when I taught this lesson 10 years ago, people were like, tariffs, taxes on imported and exporting goods. Who cares? Now, if you would have taught this lesson in the 90s with NAFTA, yes, it was a big issue and students were very interested and American adults were interested in it. And then after NAFTA, interest waned and people stopped caring again. Now, after about 2015, after the TPP and the latest laws passed under the latest administration, that shall not be named because I don't want to get kicked off of YouTube, tariffs are an issue again. And so, hey, there's a reason to talk about tariffs because they have always been and will always be a big part of policy and America. So you should know about them. Just the basics of a tariff. When you bring in goods from outside of the country and you buy goods from that's money, that's wealth to other nations. In this example, and this is just an example, this is figurative, this is not literal. Do not imagine like in 1812 they used to buy all their shoes from England. No, I'm just using this as an example. This is figurative, symbolic. So we buy shoes from whatever nation you want to imagine in Europe. That money goes to that nation. That money pays for more factories. The more shoes that they make, the more factories that they build. And inside those factories are factory workers getting paid every day. And those factory workers buy meals every day. They pay their rent, they pay their mortgage, they buy goods inside their country, and the more goods that they buy lead to more factories in that nation, lead to more workers in that nation, and that nation grows, and we started that. We gave them our money that jumpstarts and grows their economy. Meanwhile, our economy suffers. We don't make anything here. Sound familiar? We don't got any jobs here. Sound familiar? Is this 1800s or is this today? These things of the past are the things of now. These simple facts that you should know are simple facts that you need to know today because they're going to be simple facts that you're going to need to know tomorrow. This is where tariffs come in. Why would you create a tariff? A tariff can reverse the situation. A tariff can take this situation where all of our money's flowing to China and keep that money in America, create jobs in America, create factories in America, create economic opportunities and economic mobility in America, where you can go from the lowest rung of the economic ladder to the middle class to the upper class because we have a strong, suitable economy in America that serves Americans as opposed to an economy that serves other nations. During this time, in this example, you've got an economy that serves the other nations. So you can prevent this by slapping tariffs or taxes on imported goods or duties. So if we put a 50% tax, it's exaggerated, but just to give you a picture, a $5 pair of shoe plus the 50% tax ends up being $7.50 if you want to buy it from the store. They've increased the price. You can still buy European shoes, but it's going to cost you more. In a lot of situations, you may decide, I'm just going to buy the American shoe. They're the same quality. It's the same exact shoe. It's only going to cost $6. Before, you would have bought the $5 shoe as opposed to the $6 shoe. We slap a tariff on the $5 shoe. It's now $7.50. The wise consumer is going to buy the $6 American shoe. And the more American shoes you buy, the more American shoes they'll have to make. That means they'll have to hire more American workers, more American factories, and the American economy will grow. And that starts because of a tariff. Now, during this time, as we're moving forward through Unit 3 in the 1800s or the early 19th century, most of these factories are in the North. The tariff is going to help the North. The tariffs are not going to help the South because the South is not creating jobs. The jobs are being created in the North. So the South is going to be forced to pay more but get none of the gains. Here, the tariff is good for just one part of the nation. And that's true today. When we put tariffs or taxes on imported goods, it doesn't help everyone. If we tax, let's say, for example, let's say we make a tax on trucks, which is a case. If you want to buy a truck from Japan, for them to import a truck into America, they have to pay a tax. That makes the price of a truck very expensive. So most people will decide, I'm going to buy an American truck as opposed to buying a Japanese truck because the tariff has made that Japanese truck way too expensive. So the truck industry in America will grow. But it doesn't help other industries. It doesn't help farmers out. It doesn't help anyone else out. So it helps a specific sector. It's one of the things, and I know I could have done a better job of explaining it, but when you create these tariffs, not everyone gains from it. Not everyone benefits. We've created jobs for truck makers, but in reality, and if we go back to here, this is cool because it's created shoe jobs. But you, the consumer, if you step away from the big picture of, oh, we've helped our economy, you, the consumer, used to be able to get shoes for $5. Now the best you can do is $6. So yes, the tariff helped the people with jobs and the factories and the factory owner, but the consumer got cheated technically. And that's the way at the North and the South. Yes, the North's going to get the jobs in the factories, but the South, they're not getting the jobs in the factories. They're just getting the increase in the price of goods. This is going to lead to a division eventually between the North and the South that will be irreconcilable, and no diplomacy will be able to work it out, and there will be a war over tariffs. That's one of the issues that we are going to run into.